Hello, everyone. Welcome to Innovator Cafe, podcast from Silicon Valley to connect people and AI. So today we're honored to invite our old friend Xiaoyin, who is a serious entrepreneur in the AI world, to give some inside talks about her startup. Firstly, could you please let us know a little bit about your background?
Hi, I'm Xiaoyin Qu. I'm really happy to be here. I'm now the founder of HeyBoss.xyz. We are an AI engineer for people who don't code. I've been in the AI space for quite a bit. I actually started another company. We did AI characters for educational characters for kid. And I personally came from a product management background, having worked at Facebook and Instagram. And then I started another company during the pandemic, was a virtual events company. We exploded quite a bit during the COVID, but when COVID ended, our boom kind of stopped a little bit. So we sold the company last year, and then I started this new company.
I see. Yeah, your experience is very admirable. You kind of like entrepreneurship are doing startups. So what make you want to take the role of the entrepreneurship for a startup from time to time, and why do you choose AI engineering?
I guess once they say they have the saying that once you start starting a company, it's hard to come back. I guess that's probably true for me. I since I basically I quit. I left Facebook. Then I went to Stanford for MBA, and I actually dropped out after a year. And that's when I kind of have a lot of exposure with a lot of founders and start the journey. And I really enjoy starting companies, and particularly working on the things that I'm passionate about, and I've have quite a lot of experience like now dealing with VC, dealing with hiring, a growing team. And to be frank, I feel like last company we were growing really fast, but then when the COVID boom was over, we couldn't really grow much further. So I always wanted to do a company that's bigger. Kind of feel like we could have done better had there's not being, had there been more opportunities. I always wanted to kind of do a bigger, even bigger company. So that's kind of being what's driving me.
Yeah, that's quite passionate, we can tell. But why do you choose AI engineer this time? Yeah, why?
Yeah,
Why?
so we're we're actually doing quite different from Cursor. If you think about Cursor, or Windsurf, those are AI engineer for people who are already engineers. And the goal is to help those engineers be more productive. And we're doing the opposite, which is like, there's a lot of people who could either be product manager, designer, or just business people. And they have a lot of great ideas, but they don't know how to code. Historically, like YC said, you have to find a technical co-founder to help you, get your ideas in place. But we actually think the AI is getting really good, that we are imagining a world where everybody with idea can basically have their own AI engineer that code for them. And so they can really become the next Zuckerberg, despite not knowing how to code themselves. So that's something I think we thought it was really passionate, and we think the AI is good enough to actually handle that responsibility. That's what we're kind of targeting HeyBoss.xyz. The idea is like, if you have your own AI engineer, then you can be a boss too. So that's kind of why we named the company Hey Boss. Yeah.
Yeah. In similarly, we are kind of promote like one people company these days. Uh,
Correct. Yeah.
And also, I also help many of my friends do coding to AI coding like Cursor, but their reflection is they can like AI to do coding, but they don't know the idea, like structure of the program. Let's say a website, there is like a client side, a server side, there's MVC model, view model controller, those kind of concepts they don't understand at all. So have you kind of start handle these questions also, like do the very complex project coding for them?
Yeah, so like so I studied computer science in college, but I've always been a really shitty programmer. So I even find it overwhelming for me personally to understand, the backend integration and database, all of that stuff. So we actually wanted to kind of design a product that's fundamentally different from Cursor. When it comes to Cursor, you kind of know you know you're technical enough to give Cursor instruction. Like connect to this database or integrate with this API. Most of our users though, they have the idea of the type of feature they want. Like I want to have a feed, I want to have a messaging feature, I want to have a login feature, but they don't really know the technical details to make it happen. So they have the product idea, but they don't have the technical expertise. So basically our goal is to make sure when user just gave us instruction on, I want to build this feature, then our AI is smart enough to figure out in order to accomplish that feature, what is the front end, what is the back end, what is the deployment. So the user does not need to give us any technical guidance. Our AI can figure that out based on the user's instruction on the feature.
I see. Thank you. And many of our audience are like startup people. They are quite curious about like, do you have any, how can a startup normally find breakthroughs with our limited resources, typically compared with big companies, and to establish unique competitive advantages?
You mean generally or
Like generally, all your kind of
generally?
advice or your experience. And
Well, so I have to say, I've been quite lucky. A lot of times, there's I guess Andreessen has a term called zeitgeist, basically saying like there is a good timing for something. And I personally have tried many ideas. I mentioned three ideas. Those are the company that I've started. But I probably tried like 20. And I think most of the idea that I had does not have the right timing and right zeitgeist. When you kind of describe people the idea, it kind of feel like no one is really passionate about it. It's really hard to persuade people to give it a try. But I also have those ideas that I decided to start a company is when you have those zeitgeist, meaning like when you say to people, hey, if you're not technical, now there's an AI engineer that can help you code. I think it's surprising that a lot of people, it turns out, they want to have their own technical co-founder to accomplish their idea. So for us, we got really lucky when we announced that that is actually possible. We were the world's first non-coders AI engineer. We kind of just got viral just because so many people
mm,
never thought they could do that. But I also tried many other ideas where no one gives a shit, and it's really really hard to kind of break through, despite maybe I kind of tried to promote it in LinkedIn and Twitter, but no one gives a shit. So I think it's more depending on the timing and also like if there's existing people that with such demand already there.
yeah, yes. We understand that you are kind of trying to develop our job away from us as a developer. Once you have an idea, how can you quickly establish a founder team?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I wouldn't say that I'm here to replace engineer. I think there are obviously things that AI can do a better job. I think for some of the companies, we're seeing that those people are going to find it. Previously, they find like contractor or contracting firm that may be very different from you because I know you're a really senior engineer. So I think that's I don't think we can easily replace the best engineer from AI algorithm, all of that. That will be a little hard to replace. But historically, I think to answer your question, how do you find a good funding team? I have find that one of them is I used to work at Meta and Instagram, so I have some good engineering friend that I know they're great because they're the star at Facebook. So I tried my best to poach them. I maybe have to talk to like 100 people that used to work with me, and then I describe the idea. Probably only two are actually serious about starting a company because people are making so much money now at Facebook. It's almost impossible to poach anyone to leave the $1 million job to start a company. So but I kind of try to talk to a lot of the people and try to maintain a good contact with good engineer that I used to work with. So that's one path. The other is there's a lot of now with like AI and also with like remote working, it's actually being much easier to get really good engineer from outside Silicon Valley. So I actually personally have hired people in like mainland China, in Taipei, in Singapore, and I just like through my previous company, I think I built quite a good of a network there as well. So when I need to hire some good engineer, I kind of know which forum to tap to, which recruiter to find to find some local talent. I tend to kind of focusing on a few regions that I mentioned and kind of build my network there so I can easily get the best engineer there. And that has been quite good in particular as well.
I see. Once you build a founder team, how can you kind of quickly build your like MVP plus get funded? Any tips for like startup people?
Yeah, I think so for me though, I got lucky. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. The first time is always the hardest one. Once you have some track record, it's becoming easier. But I think I would say this year though, the VC has been really active at investing in kind of AI companies. So it's not that hard compared to maybe 2 years ago when there was recession. So generally, I find it depends. Some people have some traction, then they raise. Some other people they prefer to have some funding first. Maybe it's a little bit like a pre-seed or accelerator and then raise and then like hire the team and then raise a bigger round. So those are kind of different kind of strategies. I tend to maybe initially hire or have a co-founder or hire some early team and try to build something to make sure I can generally understand, have a prototype, and then I will start raising. Just my personal preference. So in that case, I kind of know what I'm building. I have some early signal from the customer. But some other product, you would probably need a lot of funding upfront. So I think first it's depending on what kind of idea it is. Does that really cost a lot of money. If you're doing an AI consumer app, maybe it doesn't require that much money. You can just build it and see some traction. But if you're building like an AI LLM company, then that's different. Maybe you need a lot of funding upfront. So that's number one. Number two is more just in terms of funding. I think it depends on what is the path you want to go. Like I think YC has make it really easy for people with no network to tap into venture capital. And also there's a lot of, if you work at Facebook or Google in the past, chances are there are so many colleagues who either started a company themselves or they are rich now, they become angel investors. So like each big tech, there's always people like that. So I think you should first tap into those people, and they can always connect you to the right VC. And then third thing is more just generally, if you can always build a landing page without actually coding, maybe get some customer to put their name into the wait list or give you their email address or even pay you a little bit before you have anything. It's not always feasible, but when you do that, you get a lot of leverage when it comes to raise funding, because they're like, here's my demand, I already have a wait list. It's much easier to persuade people to give you money that way.
I see. That's a very valuable tips. So as an entrepreneur, what qualities do entrepreneur you need to have to stand out among a lot of similar competitors?
I guess there's a lot of things I have a lot of thoughts. When I first started my previous company, which is a virtual events company, we were one of the first, but then it became extremely competitive. And there's a lot of competitors. I would say, first of all, like most of the competition is not bad, because it means like your space is actually there's real money. That's why there's a lot of competitors. I've also worked in in the space, like I thought I have the brilliant idea that no one's working on, and turns out there's not a real market and there's no money in it. So I've also seen that. So I think generally, if there's a lot of competitors, that's not bad. It means there's real money to be made. The second thing is more just depending on the type of industry. Some industry is a winner take all market where one person take it all and everybody else makes nothing. But I think it's getting less and less obvious. Like for Facebook probably is a winner take all for social network, but when it comes to like LLM, even LLM right now, there's DeepSeek, there's OpenAI, there's Anthropic. So chances are for a lot of the SaaS company, you may have multiple players. They can equally be very successful, maybe like multiple IPO company. That's also possible. So I think it's not necessarily super scary that you have to be the number one in order to be super successful. Sometimes it's okay. But generally, I think it's important to kind of understanding what are the target audience you're trying to target. Because if there's huge amount of money in your space, there's a huge TAM, then there's always a way to segment your initial customer. For example, in the AI coding space, I would say that's a quite competitive market, but we kind of target the least technically savvy, more maybe business-driven kind of people compared to Cursor, which I don't even think we're real competitors because we're so different in terms of target audience. So I think there's always a way to focusing on a cohort where you have some special advantage over others.
I see. Uh, there are actually there are many kind of hot innovation areas in the AI field going on. Do you want to make some comments like what do you view the current hot innovation areas in the AI as you observe from Silicon Valley? Or if you want to comment something on DeepSeek, if you want, yeah.
Um, so I'm seeing a lot of discussion over AI agent, obviously. And I think AI agent is, I think this is quite a buzzword, but I'm seeing a lot of companies that are trying to target a particular workflow or a particular type of job, which historically has been expensive or supply constraint, meaning like it's a lawyer, for example. A lot of people may want lawyer, but it's really expensive. So it's supply constraint. So I'm seeing like AI lawyer company. I'm seeing, AI healthcare, like that helps you make phone calls or talking to insurance to get reimbursement. I'm seeing a lot of company getting a lot of traction because they're trying to target a particular type of task that historically is expensive for labor to do. And they're just really smart at like entirely automate all that type of job, or maybe automate 90%. So the willingness to pay from the customer actually quite high because they're very specialized in one vertical. I'm seeing a lot of companies doing that, though maybe they're not super famous because they're targeting, for example, calling insurance to get reimbursement is not really sexy idea, but there's a lot of money in that space. So I'm seeing those companies make a lot of money, but people probably don't know about them. So that's number one. And number two, I think that's very underserved is there's a lot of opportunity, I believe, in AI consumer, but I think generally maybe consumer right now is not as sexy as enterprise. But I'm seeing in particular a lot of Asian founders, they're targeting AI consumer. Character AI, for example, has great retention, but a lot of people believe there's more opportunities in AI companion. But like maybe make it better, maybe make it more game-like, where they believe there's a different kind of business model to be made money. Given that Character AI has proven that the retention has been tremendous and the time spent is huge. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity in the AI consumer space as well.
I see. Thank you for your prediction. According to your eyes, what will we see, like say in this year for the AI development, or ambitiously next 5 years? Do you have some kind of estimate or expectation?
Yeah, I mean, like I do think that with DeepSeek, it is actually quite good. The cost of inference is much lower. And then the ability, now even Cursor or some other, I think they started to support DeepSeek because you can imagine the coding is only getting better. And the context window, for example, is also getting longer. So I think the ability to really see through a huge database, see through a huge code base, and be able to make like, for example, right now for us, most of our products are 0 to 1, and we're not really tapping into like a lot of engineers collaborating with each other because it's just fundamentally not really our lane. But you could imagine if there's huge contact window is still going to benefit us. That means just each user can build a product that's more sophisticated with more features, and AI can do a better job understanding how to iterate on a very sophisticated system. So it only do more wonders to us. And enable more sophisticated product to be built entirely by AI. So I do think this year we're going to see AI building more features and building more 0 to 1 projects that are much bigger in scale. And I think in 5 years, I do believe that it's truly possible where most of the maybe smaller project, I don't think you really need an engineer. I think there's always going to be niche cases, maybe in healthcare or in compliance related issue where you probably want a human who understand that expertise to help. I do think those engineers are not going to entirely be AI. I do think there's use cases where you need a real engineer. Either they understand the algorithm, they understand the workflow. But for a lot of general feature like AI boyfriend, for example, I think it's very likely we're gonna have an AI boyfriend that's super fucking good that was entirely made by AI that every girls are addicted to. I couldn't imagine that world being really close to us.
I see. Sorry to ask so many serious questions. Let us do some kind of simple one.
Okay.
If you can redo three things in your entrepreneur journey, what are they?
If I can read
Redo
through
redo three things. Let's say you can start from the
or
beginning
redo.
again. Yeah, like driving a time machine, like going back and start again. Is there anything that you want to do differently?
I think number one is probably we'll start hiring remote much sooner. And initially, like I have a personal view that I think remote is actually quite effective, especially for me because I can hire a lot of really great talent. When I first left Facebook, I thought, okay, I have to make a real team and do the Facebook way. But I thought maybe I should have. Looking back, I think it's actually smarter if I can focus more on remote leaner team. The second thing is more just like I probably wouldn't spend as much because the first time when I started a company, we raised quite a lot of venture capital, and then even VC they recommend me this vendor, that vendor, this consultant, that consultant. So we spent a lot of money. Looking back, it was kind of a waste because it was not really moving the needle. I probably wouldn't spend as much money. Instead, we're focusing on there's only like maybe two or three things that matter at each stage, and if you can identify those three things, and even the other things are all like drop the ball or doing a bad job, the company will still be fine. But I didn't know that. So I think that will be the second thing. I think third is just generally, I probably will try to be more chill. Like initially when I first start company, it's very easy to get stressed and it felt like every day you're like sprinting, but it could be a really long process. I mean, the last company took me like 4 years or 5 years or something. So I guess not now that I know it will take a long time, to get it right or to build a good company, I can just like chill more, and be more relaxed and can like hold the line for longer. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Then, until now, what are the most interesting, significant, and good AI products you have ever used and you have most like? Besides
Um,
GPT.
yeah. I use Well, I use GPT for sure. But I also really enjoy, a lot of the video editing tools. For example, like I think Opus is quite good in terms of marketing video, helping you turn a big video into smaller chunk. I actually know the founder too. And that was actually something that's really clever. It is like something the AI can do 100% really well. I'm also seeing a lot of those like video gen company for like ad creation. Like I've used it, and I think it's getting better. There's a lot of like fake model, there's AI that basically talk through things. You can generate video footage really quickly, and then do those as ad. You can test it out those ad asset really quickly. So I think that's another thing that's just really smart, and we've been using it as well.
I see. Until now, or what is the question you think that you should be asked, but I didn't ask? Is there any question that you think that quite important that I missed it?
For entrepreneurs in general.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. I think personally is more just one thing I think is interesting is just how do you figure out, how much money to raise, because right now I think a lot of the AI company has huge valuation. And personally, when I was starting the virtual events company during COVID, it was another boom cycle in like 2020, 2021, where everybody just throw money at you. I think we ended up raising a lot of money. But because we raised so much money, we burn a lot of money. And then when we sold the company, that's when the boom is over. So we didn't really sold for a lot of money. So that makes I didn't really make a lot of money myself. So I think looking back, now that I'm raising money like in this new company again, I've been thinking about exactly like is the amount of basically how many dollars you raise matters a lot because it basically from an exit standpoint, it impacted how much money you actually make yourself as a founder. So I think I'm now more prudent in terms of the raw number of dollars. So it's not just the valuation, but also like how many millions are you raising? I think that absolute number matters a lot when it comes to like exit the company and figure out how much you can make. If you can raise fewer number of dollars, uh, it's always better because when you sell the company, you're gonna make more money. I wish I knew that earlier. Yeah.
I see. Uh, as actually, you have also a strong background in product like management things. So we are wondering how we can design a good AI product effectively, especially from an engineer point perspective, because many of us are lacking this sense. Yeah.
Mhm. I think, I've also in the past 2 years been kind of building AI product. I think that there's a very different kind of process of designing product now in the AI phase versus in the past. In particular, it is more just like the product manager kind of need to understand how to evaluate the performance of the ad experience, for example, for the AI experience for us, for example. How do we build a good AI? What does a good AI coding agent for a non-technical person look like? I think that is super vague. And so it is important for me to basically define, like there are going to be things the AI does not know how to build, but the user are not technical and they're always going to say super crazy things that AI is not going to know how to do. So at the end of the day, we realize it's more about expectation management. How do we, communicate to user what can be done, what cannot be done? So it's more just like how do you train AI to basically manage users' expectation clearly? So then you have to figure out the right evaluation, basically like KPI to define if the AI is doing a good job of managing people's expectation versus not. So those are the type of things I think is more fuzzy compared to the past. Like you could say, oh, how many users, they click this button, what's the conversion rate? But I think right now, because the type of interaction the AI is having with user is more sophisticated and more nuanced. So there are ways that you evaluate. It's more than just black and white. Do they click on this button or not? It's also like, have you, manage expectation properly? Does user understand what AI is trying to say? So I think there's more nuanced evaluation compared to the last generation of product that you have to figure out.
Mm. Thank you so much. I think that's all for my questions, and thank you for coming. Do you have any more comments for our audience before we end?
Well, I suggest we actually, HeyBoss is basically helping a lot of people building their own prototype. So I think it would be cool if people can try it, build their own prototype, and let me know what we can do better.
Okay, yeah, thank you.